Hey guys, my name is Dan and I'm a first year physiatry resident in Toronto. I'm so excited for today's video. We're going to talk about how to get into med school, and we're going to focus specifically on the schools in Ontario. So today we're going to go through their application requirements, tips and tricks from me, and finally what I think is the most important piece of any med school application. So excited for you to join me. Let's get started. Okay, so let's start with UofT. UofT is the biggest med school in Ontario with 259 seats, as well as some additional seats for international students. They do have some course prerequisites, which I've outlined on the screen, but aside from those, you only require 15 full course equivalents by the time you start, meaning that you can apply to UofT Med School during your third year of undergrad. Their academic requirements involve a GPA of at least 3.6, and then MCAT cutoffs of 125 in each section with an allowance of 124 in any given section. But here's the caveat. GPA is pretty important at UofT because their class average is usually between 3.94 and 3.96, which is quite high. But here's the nice thing, is that once you score 125 in the MCAT, which is about the 50th percentile, UofT does not use it competitively. So if your MCAT score isn't great, as long as it's above UofT's cutoffs, that's all good. In terms of non-academic requirements at UofT, you do have to write 2 brief personal essays, and those are graded with the rubric I've outlined on the screen. So it's so important that you use the buzzwords included here because they literally say on their website that this is how they grade the essays. So it's so important that you take a look at those and make sure to implement those characteristics and words into your essay. In addition to that, UofT does consider your 3 reference letters. And so my biggest tip for reference letters is to make sure that you choose people who know you really well and can speak to your personal attributes. It doesn't matter if it's a science teacher from grade 9 or a professor in university, as long as you have someone who knows you well and can speak to who you are as a person. That's what really matters. So what's really cool about UofT is they actually have special streams for Black students as well as Indigenous students. So if you fall into one of these groups, you can apply through the special program, and all you have to do is just write an extra essay and you'll receive special consideration for med school admission, which is awesome. So make sure you check those out if you qualify. Alright, now let's talk about McMaster's Medical School. So there's 203 seats, and they also allow you to apply during your third year of undergrad, which is another plus. What's really cool about Mac is they don't require any prerequisite courses, so you can take whatever you want and you don't have to worry about it. McMaster does have a very clear selection process that they outline on their website, and I'll post it here as well. But it's 32% CASPer score, 32% CARS score on the MCAT, and 32% GPA. Where are the other percents? So the reason that they're out is because they provide a 1% bonus if you have a master's degree and a 4% bonus if you have a PhD. So that's the one thing to know about McMaster, is that they do accept third-year applicants, but you do get a slight bonus if you have a master's or a PhD. So now you might be wondering, what does it take to get into McMaster Med School if they have such a clear selection process? Well, their average class GPA tends to be about 3.9, so it's a little bit less competitive in that respect than UofT, but their mean CARS score is very high. It's almost always 129, which is about the 90th percentile. So I would say that your CARS score is very important if you want to get admission to McMaster. Finally, one thing to know about Mac is that they do consider geography. So 90% of interviewees are from Ontario every year, meaning that it's quite a bit more difficult to get an interview at Mac if you're from out of province. And much like UofT, McMaster does have special application streams for Black and Indigenous students, so make sure that you check those out if you can. Okay, next up is uOttawa. So Ottawa has 168 seats, and 48 of those are reserved for the Francophone stream, where the entire instruction is in French. So you do have to be able to speak French fluently if you follow that stream. uOttawa does have special admission streams as well, and they actually have quite a few for different groups, so I've outlined them here on the screen. In terms of their academic requirements, they do have a GPA minimum of 3.5, but what's awesome about uOttawa is they don't consider any section of the MCAT. So if your MCAT's not your strongest area of your application, uOttawa is the place to be. Like McMaster and UofT, it also allows you to apply during your third year of undergrad. Now, uOttawa does have quite a few course prerequisites, and it can be really confusing to interpret them. So I've included the chart here on the screen and also just a brief explanation. So when they say 3 units, they mean a 1-semester course. And when they say 6 units, they mean a full year or 2-semester course. So if they're telling you that you require 6 units in biology, that means either 2 1-semester biology courses or 1 full year biology course. Okay, next up, let's chat about Queen's. So Queen's is one of the smaller med schools in Ontario with only 100 seats, but they do have an additional 9 seats for members of the Canadian Armed Forces. Queen's has no course prerequisites, which is amazing if you don't come from a science background, because it means that you have freedom and flexibility in your undergrad to take whatever you're interested in. And Queen's, much like McMaster, UofT, and Ottawa, also allows you to apply during your third year of undergrad. Queen's has a GPA cutoff of 3.0, but their class average tends to be about 3.85, which is still quite a bit lower than UofT. And their MCAT average tends to be about 513, 514, which is competitive, but also not quite as high as the 129 you need to get in CARS for McMaster. So I would say Queen's is one of those schools that tends to value extracurriculars and life experience right up there with academics. And I think that's a really, really great way to be when looking at med school applicants. Okay, so next up, let's chat about Western. So Western has 171 seats, making it a pretty big program. But you can only apply to Western after your 4th year or after another professional degree. In other words, you can't apply to Western after only 3 years of undergrad studies. But the good news about Western is that when they calculate your GPA, they only take your 2 best years of GPA. So if you didn't do too well, say in 1st year because of the adjustment, or in 2nd year because it's notorious for being really difficult, that's okay, because Western only takes your 2 best years. That said, their GPA cutoff is 3.7, so it's quite high. Western also takes the MCAT pretty seriously, and they do have 3 cutoffs. Their cutoff for the bio section is 126, for chem is 127, and then for CARS is also 127. So you do require quite a high MCAT score to be able to apply and be competitive at Western. So in addition to Western's academic requirements, they also do have pretty thorough non-academic requirements, the most well-known being their abbreviated autobiographical sketch. So unlike the ABS that you give to every other school, Western's only has 8 items that you're allowed to include on it. And what that means is that they really want you to expand on those 8 items and show what you've learned from them. It's one of the more difficult elements of their application, and it's unique to Western, so make sure that you really spend the time on that if you're interested in going to Western Med School. Okay, last up, let's chat about the Northern Ontario School of Medicine. So NOSM is a very small med school with only 69 seats, and they only allow applicants in their 4th year of undergrad studies or later than that. NOSM is very clear about their selection process and formula, and it's 1/3 GPA, 1/3 ABS score, and 1/3 something they call a context score. The context score is based on where you've been living throughout your entire life. So they grade if you're from a Northern Ontario community, if you're from a rural community, or if you're Francophone. Those 3 things will boost your context score, but if you have lived in, say, an urban area like Toronto your entire life, it's a little bit more difficult to get into Northern Ontario School of Medicine simply because the context score is 1/3 of your pre-interview score. So NOSM is an amazing school, and they're aiming to educate physicians who are going to stay in Northern Ontario, and I really, really commend their mission. But if you're not from Northern Ontario, it's definitely one of the more difficult schools to get into. Okay, now that we've talked about applying to all the different Ontario med schools, let's chat about some of the common themes and what it really takes to get into med school. As you can see from reviewing all the different schools, GPA counts, but it's certainly not everything. When you look at McMaster, GPA is 1/3 of your formula. NOSM, GPA is 1/3 of your formula. Even at schools like Queen's, the GPA average is 3.85, which is competitive and attainable. Whereas in some other schools, it is quite difficult to reach their GPA cutoff. So the balance is that GPA matters, but it's certainly not everything. The second theme is that while the MCAT counts, it's not that important in Ontario. Aside from the CARS score at McMaster, they don't take any of it. UofT's cutoffs are about the 50th percentile. Ottawa doesn't take the MCAT. NOSM doesn't take the MCAT. You can see that your MCAT score does matter at certain schools, but if you don't have a great MCAT, you still have a world of opportunity to apply and succeed in different med schools. The third theme is that extracurriculars really matter. Showing that you have a breadth of interests aside from medicine is probably the most important thing in a strong medical school application. And that's why later on we're going to devote an entire video to chat about extracurriculars and answer all of your questions about what is the best stuff to do when applying to med school. What I think the most important thing is on any med school application. The secret to a great med school application is showing commitment. To what? Anything. If you can show commitment to a job you've worked, a volunteer opportunity, a musical instrument, a sport, if you show commitment to anything over the span of several years, that is super attractive to admissions committees. And the reason is that med school is a long, difficult, and stressful process that requires a lot of commitment to make through. So if you show that you've committed to something in the past, it makes it much more likely to admissions committees that you can commit to medicine in the future. I hope you found this video helpful in terms of applying to different Ontario med schools, what really matters on your med school application, and finally how important it is to really show commitment to something prior to applying to med school. I can't wait to create future videos for you guys, and if you have any questions or things you want explained, please comment down below. And if you like this video, like and subscribe to my channel. I have lots of exciting and fun stuff to come. Thanks so much for joining me. Take care.